Like many other train stations in the US, Grand Central Terminal was built out of a need to consolidate several railroad companies into one station, instead of having several separate stations, which was very inconvenient for everyone. This idea to build the station was proposed by Cornelius Vanderbilt in the 1860s, who at that time owned several railroad companies. Specifically, he proposed building this huge station at 42nd Street, which would look really majestic and wouldn't be inferior to European train stations, which were much better than the American ones. He called the station Grand Central Depot. That's right, depot, not terminal, because actually two other train stations were built on the site of today's Grand Central Terminal before it was built. And the first was Grand Central Depot. Vanderbilt and the architect John B. Snook, who was tasked to design the station, were heavily influenced by European railroad stations, particularly those in Paris and London. So Grand Central Depot was constructed in a similar style. The station opened in 1871 and it became the largest in the world. That's right, not just in the US but in the world. It had 12 tracks, which could fit up to 150 train cars, and it also featured some innovations. Well, for that time. First of all, there were people who only let passengers with tickets onto the platforms, and then the platforms were actually raised, so that passengers didn't have to climb the stairs when they boarded the trains. The station also had stores, restaurants, and even a police station. However, there was a pretty serious problem with the safety. In just a month after the opening, 7 people died at the grade crossings on the tracks that led to the station. So Vanderbilt decided to move the tracks into an open cut, and some tracks would be completely underground. The station quickly reached its capacity, which led to its expansion. But this didn't help, and soon the capacity was reached again, so it was decided to make more serious modifications. 3 more floors were added to the station, the concourse was double in size, foyer were added to the sides of the station, and there was also a bunch of other improvements, both to the station itself and to the track configuration. They even redesigned the facade. Since the changes were pretty significant, they decided to rename it to the Grand Central Station instead of Grand Central Depot. But that station didn't last long. Just a couple of years after the opening, a pretty bad deadly incident occurred. In 1902, one of the trains didn't see a red signal in a smoky tunnel and collided with another train, which caused 15 fatalities and 30 more people were injured. This led to the banning of all steam trains in Manhattan, leaving the railroad station with no choice but to electrify its tracks. And then, the vice president of the station, of the railroad company that owned it, had this a light bulb moment. Since there will be no emissions, this means that the tracks in an open cut on the approach to the station can be covered, and a bunch of real estate can be built on top, along Park Avenue. Also, he proposed demolishing the station, which again was just a couple of years old, and building a new one. Well, the railroad company agreed to that proposal, and the construction began shortly after, in 1903. In 1913, the construction was completed, and Grand Central Terminal was opened. The station immediately became actively used. In just 7 years after its construction, almost 40 million passengers used it, but it was used especially heavily during the Second World War and shortly after, particularly by troops moving around the country. In 1946, the Grand Central Terminal was used by more than 65 million passengers, but it didn't last for long, and the number of passengers began to decline rapidly, because people started to prefer trains to airplanes and cars. This decline led to several proposals to demolish the station, but thanks to the strong opposition of the public and some celebrities, including Jacqueline Kennedy, the station was eventually saved. In the 1990s, it saw some pretty serious restoration, which included the removal of a bunch of advertisements that were scattered across the station, the increase of retail space, and most notably, the restoration of the ceiling, which had become heavily contaminated from cigarette smoke and car exhaust since Grand Central Terminal was built. And of course it included some other restorations and improvements as well. Today, Grand Central Terminal is the 3rd busiest railroad station in North America, with over 60 million annual passengers. But also, it's one of the most visited tourist destinations in the world. That's right, not just in the US, but in the world. Over 20 million people visit the station. Well, technically it's a terminal, since all the trains terminate there. So yeah, over 20 million tourists visit the terminal each year just to see it. And I totally understand them. It's a very beautiful station. And I can talk about it for hours. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video specifically about its architecture. I promise, there is a lot to talk about. As for now, thanks for watching. See you soon.